Hello, everyone, and welcome to Awards Buzz. I'm Abe Friedtanzer,
I'm Sari Cohen.
I'm Scott Menzel.
I'm Shadan Larki.
And I'm Stacey Yvonne.
and we are here today to discuss the Screen Actors Guild Awards, the interesting ceremony that groups leading and supporting actors by gender for TV and then for film altogether, but then they have the ensemble category, which doesn't always correspond with Best Picture at the Oscars. Some of these races are very interesting, and some of them are not. As we've discussed for the last year, Stacey especially knows this. Baby Reindeer and Shogun are still eligible for stuff. This is still the season that they're like, this is the last shot, the last thing they can win. But our real question today is, are we going to see something interesting or are we going to see more of the same? And so we'll start with one of the categories, TV Stunt Ensemble, that interestingly draws from some of the other categories in terms of overlap, but the only one that really overlaps is Shogun, whereas the Penguin, since there's no ensemble in a limited series or TV movie, it's nominated for acting there also. I'm inclined to think that there's no way this could be anything but Shogun, despite some great stunts on the other shows nominated, The Boys, Fallout, House of the Dragon, etc. Does anybody think this could be anything else?
No.
I can see the boys getting it, but other than that, for SAG,
Yeah.
Love the boys and love the boys and love Fallout, but totally
for
think,
stunts.
yeah, Shogun is gonna run it. Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that Boys won last year,
Mm.
so they're going to switch it up. And Shogun has been dominating across the board. So,
And we are big fans of The Boys here, I know. And The Boys has had a puzzling awards run. I think it's possible it should be running comedy. That's a long, long conversation for another time. But I think we are satisfied here that this will be one of the 4 awards potentially that Shogun can win. Continuing on with this, we have TV movie limited actor. Sorry, TV actor in a limited series or TV movie. This seems to be, for me and for most of their precursors, a race between Colin Farrell and Richard Gadd, with Andrew Scott as a "I'm here too" kind of pick. Where do we think things are going right now? Does anyone have a strong opinion?
I think Colin.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I agree, Stacey. I'm with Stacey.
For SAG, I'm saying Colin. They love him, and it's a great show, and he's that guy right now.
I love Colin in this role. I think he's fantastic in this role, and he is an actor's actor. I just feel like Baby Reindeer has so much momentum behind it. So I feel like it's Richards. I feel like it's Richards for the win. I could hear his name being called, and I'm like, yeah, I could see it. I could see it.
Did we establish that Baby Reindeer came out last year?
yeah, yes.
I'm still like
that you keep talking about Baby Reindeer and Shogun. They're still on. It's still the same thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Because I keep thinking like, oh, what about the last, award cycle? And didn't they win all that? And I was like, oh, wait, no, this is it.
Yeah, it's bizarre. And I mean,
I
the
can't see him
fact
doing it.
I can't see it either. I mean, I gotta say that like the momentum on it, like even though a lot of people talk about it still, I just feel like the Penguin has had such a strong like buzz going for it, and it's too recent and too fresh in people's minds. And I think that's the reason why it'll actually win this category.
Also, a lot of the performances that are getting lauded from Baby Reindeer are the female performances. So Jessica Gunn and Nava Mao are the ones who are really getting kind of out there. And Richard was at first, but it seemed to have kind of died off. So
Yeah.
I think because he's behind the scenes, he's won all those prizes for other things, it makes sense to predict Colin here. That said, I don't think we can count on Andrew Scott entirely. I think he's very well respected by his peers. Fleabag was the first big thing, where I don't know. I feel like I think Colin is the safe choice. I also always wonder about genre bias and whether people really want to reward a show like this. I think the answer is yes, and we've seen that so far. But same thing with WandaVision, which ended up with all these nominations and then didn't end up winning any of like the big prizes. So that's my only word of caution. That's that I think the Penguin seems to have broken through. And maybe that'll be good news for Kristen Milioti at the Emmys. But on to our next category, I don't think it's very good news for her here, where we have our first instance of SAG's weird rules, where we have supporting contenders like Jessica Gunning competing against lead contenders like Jodie Foster, where if you look at all the precursors, they both won both. So who has the advantage here?
I'm gonna say.
I mean,
Oh,
go
go
ahead,
ahead,
sorry.
Scott. No, I was just gonna say I'm gonna say Jessica Gunning for all the reasons that Stacey's kind of talking about. I think she's sort of become the face of that show, and they might want to honor her as sort of a last hurrah. And she's just given lovely speeches. She's been everywhere. SAG in recent years does sort of favor Netflix over maybe something like a True Detective. I think more people have seen Baby Reindeer. So if you're thinking of, the people in SAG that aren't the actors, that are the radio people, the newscasters, those kinds of people may favor a Baby Reindeer over True Detective. But Scott, why are you shaking your head at me? Tell me why I'm wrong.
No. I laughed because of what you said about the Netflix thing. I think it was really funny.
You don't
Because
think
that
it's
was
true
actually,
that they
I do. I mean, I think, and that's, I think, the controversy around a lot of the reasons why most of the award shows, like the Emmys, I was been told by numerous networks why they always shop it every year when it's on a different network because it looks weird, like if like Fox gets something and then a bunch of shows gets wins from Fox and they're like, why did the Fox shows win? And that's why it goes to NBC and all those various networks, and CBS and everything. Yeah, I've noticed that too, especially in the last couple of years. But I also think that even if you go to the Academy, Netflix is one of the only games in town that actually still has a lot of money, is still very, very profitable. And they throw their money into supporting a lot of different things. So, there's a whole wing at the Academy Museum because of the fact that Netflix put in money. So I'm not really surprised that there's crossover there. Um, it's interesting because this category, I'm going to go with the Kristen on this one, mainly because of the fact that I think Jodie and Jessica seem like the two more obvious choices, and I think they're gonna like split the votes.
It's so funny because this is one of those things where normally I would go for a Jessica Gunning, but I predicted this for the CCAs, and I think it's going to be Kathy Bates. I know, it's crazy. I think that this is her last hurrah. I think that this is the time where they're like, if we're going to give her anything, this is going to be the time to do it. It's going to be a JLC win. It's going to be, that thing. It's going to be like a career kind of thing. And I don't know that they're going to necessarily think, because I'm surprised that she's on here for Great Lillian Hall and not for Matlock. But
She
is
is from
she?
that. Yeah, and then that's what I was gonna say
Oh,
to you,
this is
Stacey.
movie. Okay, so maybe for that one, maybe they'll do
I
it
think she
for
also
Matlock.
isn't even, she's not even the lead in the Great Lillian Hall. Like people were shocked that
Oh
that
yeah,
wasn't like Jessica Lange, I think. And
yeah.
so it's very
That's so
odd. I
shocked.
think
Like,
that we'll get to drama actors. I think her winning here would be the most surprising thing of the entire
it would.
ceremony.
Well, listen,
So
I will say to Stacey's point, like Kathy Bates and Jodie Foster are, as an actor voting for actors, I mean,
Mhm.
they're the gold standard. They're the gold star. Like that's they're the ones. So for me, I see Jodie Foster taking it. I mean, I was shocked when you said it, but then I thought about it and I was like, yeah, they are so revered. Um, that that this would be the place. This would be the award show for Kathy to swoop in with a win. But yeah, I'm hedging my bet on Jodie Foster here.
Well, I think
is
Jodie's going to be around a lot longer, and so people are kind of like, "Oh, we don't know when we're going to see Kathy kind of pop up again with this." But I also think that if they were looking to do something kind of new and fresh, that Kristen definitely has a chance.
Yeah.
isn't it crazy that we didn't even mention Kate Blanchett and Lily Gladstone? Like this guy, they
Yeah.
obviously Under the Bridge super underperformed and didn't like get any buzz, even though it was very good. And Disclaimer is doing about as well. Whatever, it's not nothing too crazy. But I think that's pretty interesting, just the way things work. That we would even they would like be a footnote in this. But
Are
I'm
both
also
of
going with Jodie Foster here.
are both of those Apple, Under the Bridge and Disclaimer?
No, Disclaimer is Apple, Under the
Yeah.
Bridge is Hulu.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. And is it Hulu or is it like FX?
It
I think
is.
it's a joint production, isn't it? It's FX on Hulu.
Because when we talk about exposure and being able to see this, Shadan was saying it earlier how a lot more people probably watched Baby Reindeer than watched The Penguin just because of access. And yes, they're both streaming, but one is so much more ubiquitous.
I
And
agree.
so I think in terms of, because that's why I didn't say Lily Gladstone. She's fantastic. She's a great actress. She a wonderful performance. I don't think a single person saw that show.
The
Nope.
show, so I watched the show and I did press for the show and it was
Mhm.
fantastic. It
Yeah.
was such an incredible show. She, they didn't really push Lily, or maybe Lily didn't, she didn't do a whole lot of press, so there really wasn't
Mhm.
a whole lot of buzz around it, unfortunately. And she's such a powerhouse that I feel like that could have changed the game for the show.
I will
Yeah.
say,
I
yeah,
also
Under the
think it
Bridge.
was because of she was coming off Killers of the Flower Moon.
Mhm.
It was very close to when
Well,
that
more
movie was
fancy
being
dance.
pushed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that too.
I don't know why she didn't. Fancy Dance, I think she could have won an Oscar for. I'm not sure why there was no campaign whatsoever for that because I saw that before Killers of the Flower Moon. But that's
I
Lily
have a
Gladstone.
conspiracy theory about that.
Lily Gladstone will be back. We'll talk about her again. Under the Bridge, by the way, for clarification, was just Hulu, not FX, which
Okay.
doesn't help its chances. But
Yeah.
as we move on to the three drama categories, I think Shogun's going to win everything. I think we have to talk about Best Actress because of Kathy Bates. The question is, does anyone think that anybody except for the ensemble of Shogun and Hiroyuki Sanada are going to win the other two categories?
No.
Mm-mm.
No.
Yeah, no.
Also,
God
the
bless
old man has been
Bridgerton for being
canceled.
on here.
Like the old man has been canceled. I'm not really sure why that's there, and I'm a little surprised by Bridgerton's resurgence. But Stacey, why don't you start us off with Best Actress with Anna Sawai versus Kathy Bates? I think I know what you're going to say.
I think it's gonna be Kathy. I do. It's either this or the other one. They're gonna give her one. Only in I think Anna Sawai did a fantastic job, and I think that she's gotten a lot of recognition. So the safe money, of course, is for her on this. But it's very interesting. The odds are like 21-10 for Anna and then like 51-20 for Kathy, but then that's gone up. She's getting a lot more traction, especially after the last win. And so I could see her kind of shaking things up. And if it gets real crazy and then they end up getting split, I can see Carrie Russell or Allison Janney running up in there. It's such a interesting category. And especially because I thought it was very interesting that we have Carrie and Allison both from the same show, but that show is not nominated for best. Oh, wait, no, it is. Sorry. I was like, wait, okay, never mind. So yeah, that's the only one I could see maybe making some noise, but otherwise I think it's Shogun all the way. Shogun and Kathy Bates.
The only thing that gives me pause, Stacey, is that Matlock is coming back. Whereas we know Anna,
Mm,
like she's not returning for Shogun. So like I feel like they will have
Spoiler
another
alert.
opportunity. Sorry. I mean it's been out for a year. But
Years, as Stacey would say,
years,
years.
yeah, years. But yeah, I think in terms of the Emmys, like as soon as I saw where was it cat was it the CCAs? Yeah, I was like, oh, she's making a play. Like I don't care that it's like a network show. I don't think that matters because it's Kathy Bates. Like you
right.
mentioned, somebody mentioned genre bias in terms of the Penguin. I think Colin Farrell is the kind of actor that can overcome that, and I think Kathy Bates. It doesn't really matter what network you're on. It doesn't really matter the show. Like she delivers, and people are gonna show up.
Yeah. And
But
this
maybe not in this case. But go
This
ahead.
is no, I was just gonna say underneath it all, these are actors voting for actors. It's so important to remember with SAG because a lot of times you will get the sentimental favorites. Like
Mm.
people will vote based on the people they love and maybe not necessarily the performances. So although yeah, in this category, I do think I think Anna has it in this category. I think Shogun has proven itself time and time again, and yeah.
I'm not I'm not confident, but I think that Squid Game winning this category a few years ago for a Korean actress that nobody, knew otherwise shows that the power of something, quality really can transcend that. That
Mm.
said, I do remember that Jennifer Aniston beat Olivia Colman for the first season of the morning show versus The Crown. So I do think that there's something about being embraced by your peers. That said, Kathy Bates has been rewarded. It's not like she's a newcomer who is waiting for it's not Isabella Rossellini at the Oscars, which we'll get to. Like this is something where Kathy Bates has been, celebrated a lot. And so it's not like this is a huge comeback. Like she's still been very consistently. She was nominated for Oscar for Rachel Jewell just a few years ago. So I feel like
Every
it's not like she's overdue. She's certainly deserving. And it's also there's something nice, I suppose, about having, I'm just checking here, yeah, a like network show, because aside
Yeah.
from Abbott Elementary, we really don't have any,
Yeah.
representation that way. That said, how do we feel about like it's a different kind of acting, I think, in a lot of ways. And I think Abbott
Yeah.
itself is even a lot, Matlock is sort of old fashioned. And are we looking for old fashioned? It's Kathy Bates, it's great, but it's still old fashioned, and I don't know that that's what people necessarily searching for.
It's funny though
Scott?
because Kathy's real quick. Kathy's cachet really took off after the story about her not thanking her mother, and then Ben Mankiewicz was like, "Oh no, you did," and that whole thing. I think that endeared so many more people to her, even outside of the acting of it all. And then it's like more people are starting to pay attention, and I can definitely see that resonating around actors, especially those who are voting. And if you're voting and you think of that moment, it might be enough to kind of push her into, the forefront. So it'll be interesting.
I would say I agree with you, Stacey, on that. I would say CBS has done a remarkable job pushing Matlock.
Mhm.
They've really kind of gone behind the show. The campaigning for it. I mean, I know I watch a lot of network television, which I know a lot of people don't watch. Um, and I will tell you, anytime I turn on CBS, there's a commercial for Matlock. Like it's constantly like that. It's like the one show that they keep pushing, they keep pushing, they keep pushing. And I'm gonna go back to what, like what we talked about a little bit earlier, is that when you kind of come into SAG in particular, I always call it kind of like the high school show, where it's sort of like who's the most popular, who's the best known, you know. And I think Kathy Bates, is just, an icon, a legend. And I think she's not going to get nominated as this show continues to go on. I don't think it's going to be nominated for season 2 or season 3. And if it is nominated for season 2, it's going to be less and less. Like she's going to be like the number 5 slot to win. So I really feel like this is the momentum she has right now, and I think they're gonna cash in on it.
Scott, do you know, I'm sorry, post after merger, do you know what the like breakdown is of actors versus like the after side of things? Because I just wonder how much that's going to come into play.
I
I,
don't, and I don't
I
want to
don't.
misspeak.
Yeah,
Mm.
I think it's been merged for so long that I think it is really just, at least to me, feels like more of one unified body. Um, Scott, to your point about the popularity, the idea of it being a popularity contest, I think it can go either way with that, where like, yeah, Kathy Bates, certainly, again, like Kathy Bates, Jodie Foster, but also the popularity of Shogun right now. It's like which and I guess, yeah, who's voting? I mean, at the end of the day, like what's the demographic? Who are the actors that are showing up to make their voices heard on this? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just a lot of people, like when they vote on ballots, especially when you see a name, a lot of people are like, oh, I know that person, and we're going to talk about someone up in actress for film a little bit later, that I feel like is the shoe-in to win because of that reason.
Well, let's look at before we move on to film, the 3 TV categories. I want to start us off by mentioning the last few winners in these categories. Io won actress last year, and Jean Smart won the 2 years before that because Hacks wasn't on that season.
Yeah.
And that was actually Io's first nomination last year.
Yeah.
Male actor in a comedy series, Jeremy Allen White, Jeremy Allen White. So this could be an easy third win for him.
I can't
For
imagine.
ensemble, that was a little more interesting because the Bear won last year. The year before, both the Bear and Hacks lost to Abbott. And the year before, Hacks lost to the final season of Ted Lasso. So Hacks has actually never won ensemble in a comedy series. And I think we're coming into this with Hacks being like on fire, super, super hot, the Bear sort of cooling, but Jeremy being sort of immune to that and still picking up awards. And then we have the show we like here at Awards Buzz, Nobody Wants This, that did pretty well, but didn't get an ensemble nomination, which is not damning, but it is concerning. So I think the least interesting of these three races has to be the comedy actress one, because despite the fact that a certain someone, Kristen Bell, is hosting the awards, I don't see that performance taking down Jean Smart, who also, we're not sure yet, but it's possible because Hacks is premiering at Paley Fest. Hacks may be back for season 4 this season, meaning that Kristen Bell won't have any chance at the Emmys also. Do we think there's anybody who could unseat Jean here, or is
No.
that a done
No.
deal?
No,
No.
Jean, 100%. Yep.
Yeah, Stacey?
I was gonna say, did Jean win for the CCAs?
Yep.
Okay. And yeah, she
I
wasn't
thought-
there. She had to film something. Okay. Interesting.
I thought Kristen was going to win at the Golden Globes, but that's because it's a Golden Globes kind of thing. And like here, again, the fact that she's hosting is definitely helpful, but I still think, I feel like there are a lot of things people like can criticize the Bear, people can criticize other stuff, but like you can't really find bad stuff to say about Hacks. People really, really like Hacks. And especially the fact that, puzzlingly, Hannah Einbinder isn't here and has never been nominated for an individual SAG award. That just makes the case stronger that like this is Hacks. Jean Smart is Hacks here.
Kristen Bell is very touchy around awards. I don't know what it is. It's something, whatever it is with the voters, they seem to not like her very much. I don't know what it is exactly. I'm sure it's probably a combination of a bunch of things, but she's always kind of called up and then it's like, oh, okay, on to the next thing. So there's a staying power. She's always there. She has longevity. She's been working forever, but they always seem to kind of be like, oh yeah, Kristen Bell. So it'll be interesting to see if that comes up. But no, I definitely think it's going to be Jean in this category.
She's good at playing very unlikable characters, and that is a skill, but it's possible that that point that you're making, that people are like, oh, she sucks, but like she's great. She just plays
too good.
The Good Place also was criminally under-rewarded everywhere. Like I don't really understand what happened with that. Moving on to our comedy actor race, we have some like real veteran Harrison Ford, who sadly is representing Shrinking. Like that show should have 5 nominations for actor and 5 for actress. And it will never, but in my mind, let's do it. We have Ted Danson, who I know we like a lot here. Martin Short, who Only Murders in the Building is not going to win. We know that. And Adam Brody, who did win the Critics' Choice Award, but Jeremy Allen White was not nominated there. Harrison Ford was not nominated there. And so I don't know how much that means. Do we think this is still Jeremy or something else?
Wasn't Harrison nominated? Oh, for okay, never mind. No, I think this is Adam.
Michael Urie won, but he was the only one nominated for Shrinking at the Critics' Choice, which again, no logic.
I think like, and also of course everyone loves Harrison Ford. He's Harrison Ford, but yeah, I think it really is a tight race between Jeremy and Adam, and I can see either one of them walking away with the trophy for this.
I think it would be crazy if Jeremy got, only because like this season was so kind of hit or miss, but I think that Adams is the one that's still very fresh in mind and it's fun, which people are really kind of leaning towards to more instead of just being, overly, because sure, The Bear is a comedy, but it's not, and this season especially was extremely dramatic. So I could definitely maybe Ted, but it would be a stretch. I looked at the pictures and I thought that was Steve Martin. So I was like, oh, well. So I think it's going to be Adam.
Well, I love throwing in the statistics, as you know. Alec Baldwin won this award 7 times in a row for 30 Rock.
And deserved it.
I'm not, well, sure, but I'm not sure SAG voters are like, sure, we'll let it go. Like the show's past its prime. They're like, no, let's keep giving it. Let's keep giving it. And obviously, Jeremy Allen White is not having any fun on this show, but he is still like good. Like he's still doing great work, whether it's in the right category or not. I remember this like Laurie Metcalf was nominated for Best Guest Actress in a Comedy Series for Desperate Housewives years ago, and like a very serious role. It's like it's a very good performance. Why is it in this category? I don't know, but like this is still an incredibly good performance. I didn't laugh, but it's still quality. Shadan, did you want to add something here?
This is my no guts, no glory prediction of SAG. I think it's going to be Harrison Ford. Am I confident? No. But my thing is, I think it's a popularity contest. Again, if you are a middle America journalist, you're going to probably be more familiar with Harrison Ford than Adam Brody. Yes, Adam Brody is popular with my generation because of the OC and he's iconic in his own way, but I just think if we're looking at the voting body as a whole, and I do agree with you that they perhaps are ready to move on from Jeremy Allen White, I think Harrison Ford makes more sense as an alternative. The only thing that gives me pause is how many people are watching Shrinking. But I mean, to you bringing up the Olivia Colman versus Jennifer Aniston, she's a beloved icon in a show that even if you haven't seen it, it's easier to vote for Jennifer, and I think it's easier to vote for Harrison than perhaps
Yeah,
Adam Brody.
I want to add to you, Sedan, and I also think like this is like the first time in a long time that we've seen. I mean, I was shocked when he wasn't like that he wasn't sweeping the first season because Harrison like does something here that we don't really see him do much. He's kind of like he's still playing like his cranky old man character, but he has a really sharp comedic wit to him on this show, which I think makes the performance so much better than so much of the work that he's ever done before. Because I mean, listen, I know it's a controversial thing to say, but I feel like Harrison Ford's a very kind of like one note actor. And watching him on this show and kind of seeing him showcase emotion, showcase comedy, and then showcase the thing that we all know him for of being like kind of like the grumpy guy, it just is such a well-rounded performance, and I would love for your prediction to be right on this, Shadan.
I actually
I
think,
would, yeah.
yeah, I think there's a lot of hope to that. And kind of for the Kathy Bates reasons that we were talking about, and kind of what you mentioned is, this is the fourth season, and who knows how much longer it's going to be renewed. Apple kind of has a
The second season
of
Shrinking.
Shrinking. Oh
Its
my
second
gosh.
season is Shrinking.
You guys, it's been a
Stacey's already seen the
long
fourth, so she can
year.
give us all the spoilers.
Listen, exactly. I came from the future, you guys, and let me tell you. No.
You're talking about Only Murders in the Building is on season 4.
Exactly. That's probably what I'm thinking. But I'm like, it was Shrinking. I don't know, how many more seasons. And Harrison, God bless him, is an aged man. He has been hanging in there. But there are some parts of his performance you're like, oh yeah, this is a aged man. So I can definitely see them as being like, let's get this award now. And then we can worry about the rest later.
But how many people are watching Shrinking versus how many people are watching Nobody Wants This?
I think it almost doesn't matter though. Like I was saying, like they see the name and they're like, oh, he must be good in this. It's Harrison
Nobody Wants
Ford.
This is on Netflix, which was something we said before. But I mean, Harrison Ford, the fact that season 3 is coming soon is a good sign, but also a bad sign. The same way you're saying that Kathy Bates, like she might be nominated again for Matlock. The same thing here. That said, I actually think that to Scott's point, Harrison Ford being in Captain America actually helps him here. It's sort of like John Hamm in Fargo versus John Hamm in The Morning Show. One of those is clearly better than the other. And so the fact that like it's not just he's old and grumpy, it's like he's doing something different. And so like he's fine in Captain America, but he's so good here. And so I feel like the somewhat okay performance in Captain America shows just how good this one is, which could really help. He also, unlike Kathy Bates, he was nominated once for an Oscar, and it's not for what you think, it was for Witness. And so sort of like it would be nice to see him celebrate. Unfortunately, I don't know. Again, Shrinking is so good, has so many people, and the fact that, again, Michael Urie was the only one nominated at the Critics' Choice. Show was not nominated for a series, wasn't nominated at the Emmys. Like, what is wrong? What is happening? Why are we not watching Shrinking? And can it win Best Ensemble? Wouldn't that be cool?
Listen, I kind of think in this Harrison Ford case, it reminds me of a Gary Oldman situation where it's like you've got this brilliant actor, this incredible show, and it should be recognized on merit alone, and it just is not reaping the same rewards for whatever reason. But
I do want to add that there is a billboard right near where I live that for SAG for Slow Horses that has Gary Oldman sitting with like his socks up with like a hole in them, and it says Best Ensemble in a Drama, and then the word series is covered by his socks. So like, I think that's very clever. It's like very specific advertising, and he'll have more chances for that because season 4 has already aired. Like it'll be back. But or actually, this is season 4, but still, like, yeah, very interesting stuff.
No, another interesting stat about shrinking too is that obviously Apple had Ted Lasso, which was a Bill Lawrence show that dominated even in season, like it didn't win as much in season 3, which like I think everyone kind of agrees that like that was like the weakest season of the 3 and like it didn't really deserve to. But it was sort of like that darling that like I remember when the first season came out, how many Emmys like they did like that huge FYC event for it. And then the second one, I think they got even more nominations for season 2. And then the third one, it fell off a bit, but it's still Bill Lawrence, Scrubs. Bill Lawrence is someone who everyone knows. He's a very like beloved creator. So like the fact that Shrinking just hasn't kind of taken on and found an audience is kind of surprising to me, and especially when you have someone like Harrison Ford and Jason Segel, who, again, How I Met Your Mother, like it's very weird. This whole dynamic of like you have two really big actors that are known, really well known in Hollywood, and a showrunner who is beloved in Hollywood. And the show, for some whatever reason, just hasn't been able to kind of gain, critical acclaim in terms of awards. It's very strange.
I think part of it is the Ted Lasso fatigue. I think season 3 of Ted Lasso really like people were just exhausted by it, and so having Shrinking come out so quickly maybe is part, not all of it, but part of it, I think.
Yeah. I
I'd
hate
also
watch
argue
season 3 of Ted Lasso. I fucking loathe that season.
love
It's
Yeah.
so horrible.
I just love
I
Ted
would
Lasso.
say
I'm in it
that
to the end.
I think that Shrinking, like Severance, is a show that started out, pilot was fine, and it only gets better as it keeps going. And so it's hard. I think some people may have started and been like, okay, and then not gone more. I
It's
want
almost
to
kind of a
get
cult hit. Yeah, it's like a cult show
yeah,
where it's like people who watch it, and
I want to get us over to film, but are we all predicting hacks for ensemble, or do we have
Yeah.
any?
yeah.
Okay, great. So as we move over to film, we're going to start with the Sun Ensemble category. Will it be the very underrated The Fall Guy or Oscar visual effects frontrunner Dune Part 2?
Fall Guy deserves it. I mean, talk about that. I mean, the whole friggin' the whole friggin' movie was a love letter to the whole thing. So, I mean, it would be sad if it doesn't get it. But
Yeah.
again, it didn't do that well, and a lot of people, I don't know how many people really did end up
Watched it.
seeing it.
well,
Yeah.
this is the place that it should get it, right? Because
Yes.
the people that are voting understand that it is a love letter to that, and that in itself, I agree. It should win this. It would be really silly if it didn't. It's just kind of one of the shake your head moments of like, what, why? Yeah.
I'm going with the Fall Guy very nervously, but I'm excited. I think it can happen.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as we get into our acting categories for film, we've been following this race for a while. The race has been interesting. We've heard different things. For a while, people thought A Complete Unknown is back. Edward Norton is going to win. Guy Pearce is going to win the BAFTA. Guy Pearce isn't even nominated for SAG. I don't think he's going to win. That would be quite a surprise. I think the fact that there aren't all these other categories, to me, means that Kieran Culkin, who I still think is going to win the Oscar, is pretty much invulnerable here. It would be fun if Jonathan Bailey won just to mix things up and create confusion, but I don't really see a way in which Kieran doesn't win here, especially in the afterglow of Succession.
Totally agree.
Well, okay, we'll talk about when we get more to Best Actress, but the response to Wicked has been extremely interesting this award season. And yeah, Jonathan Bailey was nominated, but I think that was just we really love Jonathan Bailey and let's do something. But yeah, but no, I think Kieran all the way. I think 100% this is his category in every award show until the end of the award season.
Yep. I would agree.
Well, Shadan, did you
I was
want
just
to
gonna
add
say
something?
sweep. Sweep. It's gonna be a
Yeah.
sweep.
Well, so our next category is supporting actress. We say sweep because of the Amelia Perez backlash that I don't know that Zoe was ever really part of that. And the question is, can someone completely survive the film tanking and just exist on the merits of the performance? Because I think a lot of us might have said that, not Stacey though, because she weren't even predicting to be nominated. Ariana Grande could have won at some point, and I think that certainly would have been possible. I see a Isabella Rossellini, vote split situation in the Oscar as like a distinct possibility, but Isabella Rossellini is not nominated here. If a complete unknown really does well, does Monica, Barbaro? I don't know. Jamie Lee Curtis would not be a great choice here, I do not think.
Mm-mm.
Danielle
Okay.
Deadweiler would make me very happy, but it's impossible. Like statistically could never happen. Sari, go ahead.
Oh, no, I would say Jamie Lee Curtis, and I'm not saying that this will happen, but I think it would be an interesting scenario that she would have a Kathy Bates, Jodie
That
Foster
would be
effect.
wild.
And because I mean, yeah, Zoe definitely seems like the obvious choice here, but with everything that's been happening, I don't know if people are going to be able to distance themselves from that. And if that's the case, the person on the list where people are going to go, Jamie Lee, like they want to give her awards, especially in this last year. She won her Emmy. Like they want to award her with things.
So, and counter to that a little bit, I think, okay, so Abe, stats guy, the year that she won the Oscar, did she also win that same category in
Yes.
SAG?
Yes.
That's
Okay,
when it
and
started. SAG started because that was Banshees of Inisherin won both supporting races at BAFTA, which was like very British of them, and not
yeah.
super relevant.
And that's
So
what I
that's
figured
that's
is,
worrisome. But she's not even nominated at the Oscars this time. So
mhm,
like it's Emily Blunt did this. She won a couple years ago for that was for A Quiet Place.
Yeah.
She won at SAG and then wasn't even nominated at the Oscars. But otherwise,
yeah.
it's very rare for that to happen.
Was Lupita nominated? Well, no, that would have been this year, right? For
Yeah.
Quiet Place. Okay. Um, but no, I think with Jamie Lee, if she were to win this, like there's going to be rioting in the streets. I don't see it. I don't see it because so many people did call it an upset last year, but we were willing to kind of let it go because it's JLC twice in a row. I don't see that happening. So,
What's problematic is like Pamela Anderson is so good in the movie, and the idea that Jamie Lee Curtis would win and not Pamela Anderson, that
yeah.
just doesn't track with me. That said, that's just not how it works. Monica again, I feel like is a threat in some ways because this is where her thing started. She got the Oscar nomination after the SAG nomination, pretty much only. And a complete unknown, people are still predicting it to win Best Picture, which I don't get. But like, there's something about this film, and while Edward Norton is certainly overdue, and Timothy has his fans, like I think Monica like sort of came out of nowhere in a lot of ways. Like she was in Top Gun Maverick, a bunch of TV shows, and like this is a pretty incredible performance. Just to me, after seeing Zoe win BAFTA, I feel like enough time has passed and people know what's happening with Amelia Perez, and they're still choosing her. And again, she's somebody who, unlike someone like Ariana Grande, who isn't primarily known for her acting, has been working for a very long time, turning in really, really good work. And say what you will about how much people might hate the songs or the story or anything about Amelia Perez, she's pretty phenomenal. Like she really, really goes into it. Is she supporting? No, but that doesn't matter because, again, like Jeremy Allen White for Best Actor in a Comedy, this is where the chance is to nominate her. So I don't know, Scott, do you think Ariana still has a chance here?
No. No. As much as I love Wicked, I think that it's the her ship has sailed in this category.
To say
Um,
about to say real quickly about uh Monica. No, I'm sorry, completely. Oh no, about Zoe. Her response to all of the Amelia Perez stuff was actually very smart and very well done. And she was just like, "Oh, I feel sorry for her." And it was just like, I'm still an actress, and I have nothing to do with. Basically, my name is Bennett, and I ain't in it, except for where these awards are concerned. And people are like, "Okay." So yeah, I think
yeah,
this is
I
100%
think it's
her.
a weird. I mean, I don't. I mean, we're not going to get into controversy on this thing, but I mean, like, I feel very mixed about this whole reaction of how everyone has kind of reacted to this. I mean, especially the director. I thought the director, the way he handled it was just
Yeah.
crazy. I'm just like sitting there and I'm like, take him off the stage. No more speeches from this man, please. Um, but like, I don't know. I mean, Zoe Saldana's been she's been working for a really long time, and she's a really great actress who I think we would all agree is kind of criminally underrated. And I mean, Netflix, to their credit, they have really kind of been they have been pushing her, and this has been kind of the focal point of this whole campaign is
You know,
her.
the funny thing about this, though, is that if she wins, which I'm thinking that she will, a lot of it will also be for her role in Lioness. And people just want to, her to win something because she's so good on that
She
show.
is
And
so good on that show. Oh,
mhm,
yeah.
I've heard people
Also,
like talking, like actors talking about, like, God, if you could give an Oscar for that, you're just like, they
Yeah.
kind of are. Yeah.
I think Zoe also really has, because Jamie already won a couple years ago. Zoe really has the overdue factor in this category. Whereas Danielle Deadweiler is still pretty young, still working a lot. She has a movie
Yeah.
premiere at South by Southwest, which is great. Let's hope that one of these days, after 7 snubs, we can finally get her nominated for an Oscar. But yeah, I think Zoe here.
Hmm.
We have now the top categories. Best actor, we've been hearing all along. It's going to be Timothy. He's going to rebound. He's going to whatever.
I
He hasn't done that. Like, when is that? Is that going to happen? Like next season? It's I don't see it at this point. I think Adrian Brody, similarly to how people were like, the Brutalist used AI, let's write it off forever. Except all of our movies used AI. Whatever. I think Adrian Brody seems to really have that. He also 2002, which was one of my first years paying attention to the awards races. He did not win the SAG Award. The Oscar win was completely a surprise. So it's not as if he's been rewarded by SAG before. And I think that also plays into this a little bit. What do we think?
Oh, he's got this in the bag
You
for
think
sure.
so?
Yep.
I,
Yep.
oh, that's it. Because I don't think it's so sure. Well, first, I cannot abide Timothy Chalamet in this category. I just refuse. I refuse to acknowledge it. And so, therefore, no. I could definitely, because this is actors voting on actors. Oh God. If there was a time for Timothy Chalamet to get it, this would probably be it. But because I'm a hater and I refuse, and not because I don't think he's a good actor, but I think it's way too early. He shouldn't not, especially for this performance. Anywho, I think there's an odd fatigue with Adrian Brody. There's something happening not at the top level, not at the critics level or, that kind of like overall executive level, but at the viewer level. I've seen too many people say this is the piano part too, and it's just like, but you get it. It doesn't make sense, but I get it. Um, and if anything, I could see Rafe kind of jumping up and, shaking things up. I could see people being like Coleman, like if this is going to be the only thing he wins, and let's give him this. So we can, it's interesting. It's an interesting category.
It's a tough one because um I've been on like the Timothy train on this for a while just because of the fact that it's such an iconic, like he's portraying such an iconic person. And I again, knowing the history of like awards, like they typically really enjoy that, but then you have exceptions to the rules. Um, and I don't know. I just feel like the Adrian Brody, like when I saw the Brutalist at Venice, like I was like so like sure of the Brutalist kind of being like the sweeping movie. Um, and I think Adrian Brody gives amazing speeches. I think he's really, really charismatic. I think he's really charming when he goes up there. He really speaks from the heart. I mean, like his CCA speech was very good. But I do kind of agree with you, Stacey. Like where I feel like Timothy has kind of been like taken around and whatnot. The only thing that concerns me of the between the two of them, right? And I think I can tell you another reason why Ralph Fiennes is not winning, um, is it kind of comes down to personality. When people are like in a room and like they're going around and they're meeting voters and like what their interactions are. And this is something that I think a lot of people struggle with, is that they're not very good at being personable. I think a lot of that actually happened last year with Ryan Gosling for Barbie. Like when you watch Ryan Gosling on screen, he's very charming, charismatic. But if you've ever been in an FYC event, he's sort of the guy who kind of like stays against the wall and doesn't want to be bombarded. And like that's how America Ferrera like kind of got nominated so many damn times, was like she was always out there and she was in the middle of crowds and she was like socializing. And what I'm getting at with this in a roundabout way is like Ralph Fiennes like is not the kind of guy to go around and like shake everyone's hands and smile and do photo ops. And I actually think that the people are protecting Timothy too much, his team. Like they're
Mm.
sort of like kind of like, we're gonna be a little selective about where he goes, kind of thing. And I feel like that's kind of hurting him here. Because I mean, listen, Ariana Grande, I know she's a big star, but they've really kind of threw her front and center in a lot of these things.
Yep.
Where Timothy has
Yeah.
been kind of like more like, we'll put him to the side. And I think that's sort of been hurting their campaign a little bit.
They've been putting him in for Dune stuff.
Yes.
It's the weirdest thing is like anytime there's a Timothy's appearance, it's for Dune. And I'm like, hello. Like,
Yeah,
aren't you?
it's
You have a whole other
strange.
project here.
Yeah, it's very strange. They've just been very selective. Like they've been going to like they kind of have the laundry list of like what they have to do, and they're like, no, we're going to all the ones that we said we're going to, and if anything else where he pops up, we're like, no, we're not. He's not going to that. And it's very weird because I think like those speeches, as we've all learned, really kind of help build the momentum. And we talked about this on a previous stream too. This year, we've had a lot of these normal events that kind of go out, like the Santa Barbara thing and the Palm Springs. There just hasn't been that much like noise coming out from these events this year. Like I feel like there's really been very little noise, and I'm sure the fires have something to do with that. But it feels like an off kind of award season, right? And you would think like John M. Chu of it all, just to kind of go to that real quick. John M. Chu, you know, at the Astros and then at CCA. Like I mean, and then he had another speech somewhere else. I mean, that man is passionate and like you feel the love and the energy even when he wins, like the eruption from the crowd in the rooms. And like you would think that that would have a bigger play in Wicked, but it's not. So like Timothy not having any of those moments, I don't know. I think it kind of hurts him.
John, what do you think?
I think that if there was ever a place, I think Stacey, you mentioned this, if there's ever a place for Timothy to do a surprise, it's going to be SAG. I think the same thing is true of Ariana. I think she's actually number 2 behind Zoe just because of the voters. But I think Adrian Brody, we have to remember that he's been around. Like people think, okay, this is his return to the Oscars, true, but he's been working a lot. He's been in things that a lot of people have seen. So even if you're not a huge film buff, you still know him, you like his work. He's, been a character actor. And I think one thing we have to think about, and this can come up in our next category too, is people like the idea of awarding a winner, and they know that
Mm.
Adrian Brody has been winning. So I think even if you might like a Coleman, you say, well, okay, I love Coleman Domingo, but clearly this isn't his year. He's not going to win. Let me throw my support behind Adrian, perhaps. So that's, and the whole argument of people haven't finished the Brutalist. I don't think that hurts Adrian Brody at all because I
Right.
think he's from the first frame good to the end. So even if you're a SAG voter and you said, let me just watch 30 minutes of this thing, it's enough for you to go, okay, I get why people are talking about Adrian Brody so much. Check and move on.
Yeah.
I also would add that in terms of Ray Fiennes, I think if he had won at BAFTA, that would have been the place. Again, like the Banshees thing and how the film won there. I think Adrian Brody just has kept winning, and if Timothy, he would have been somewhere else. The other interesting stat that I just confirmed to make sure is that when Adrian Brody won for The Pianist at the Oscars, he was the same age that Timothy is now, which is just interesting to think about.
Oh.
Right? I think he had just turned 30, or he was about right about that, or a little under 29. So
Yeah.
just interesting because we don't. Also, I mean, Adrian Brody, I think feel like Timothy has done a lot more high profile stuff than Adrian had done at that point. I think he was, had done a little bit, but the PNS was really his breakout. So interesting. I just don't think this is the place that will have a surprise. I do think
Timothy
that Best
really looks like a
Actress,
baby. He looks like a child.
but he is
That might
nominated.
be
Even if you don't acknowledge, he is nominated. For best actress, it's been a chaotic past few weeks with Honora winning all these huge prizes and
it's
nothing for Mikey. And then at BAFTA, when it only wins best actress and nothing else. So we are all confused. I don't know exactly what to make of that because I feel like BAFTA is like this really, I mean, they're British, they're fancy, like the fact that they went for Mikey over someone like Demi Moore is like definitely worth giving us pause to say, like, I still think Demi's going to win, but I am not secure in that at all.
So this is a very interesting category because I said Cynthia needed to win BAFTA. I was like, if you can't win at home, girl, like then we just unfortunately do not have a chance. And I mean, if she were to win tonight, then it might help. But I mean, or not tonight, but during SAG, then it might do something. But unfortunately, I think that's a campaign that's dead in the water. It would take some mountains being moved. I said about Pam Anderson, I was like, she's just not an actor's actor. And I think that while it's enough to get her nominated, I don't think anyone is actually seriously doing that vote. I think Carla was a lock on this until she started tweeting. And then it's like, well, okie dokie. And so, yeah, the fact that Mikey kind of rose from those ashes. It was just so wild to me how much Honora has been like taking it. And people have been like, oh, it's gonna get best picture. And I'm like, you might not be wrong. That's crazy. But yeah, I could see Demi 100%, but I also think a lot of people are calling her a lock for the Oscar. And so might go a different way here, might reward kind of the new performances versus the kind of seasoned ones. So
This is one of those categories that I feel like has taken me on such a wild ride because every single one of these actresses at one point I was like, it's a lock. She's got it. She's got it. She's got it. It started with Mikey, and then I feel like it was Cynthia. I thought for sure Cynthia had it. And then Pam kind of creeped in where I was like, okay, this could be her moment where she's proving herself to the body of actors that she is one of them. And then I thought for sure, obviously, Carla, this would be the award show that Carla would walk away with this award. And obviously, with everything going on, I think that's not even an option now. And Demi just seems the obvious choice of like she's just this movie has gained so much praise and so much momentum to the point of where, yeah, Mikey could come back because it is also, I was just talking about this last night, and Nora has that flavor from the beginning of being this kind of like independent new, can this keep filmmaking alive? Are we seeing it? It's got something to it that I think artists really gravitate towards. Um, but I still see at this point in time and seeing that SAG is this weekend, I think it's gonna be to me. That's my
well,
guess.
to Scott's point about the appearances and really putting yourself out there and doing so kind of in a genuine way, Demi has been on top of that. Her acceptance speeches have been fantastic. She gives great carpet. She's been so friendly and wonderful to everybody. And so I think a lot of people are rooting for her.
Can we just make that a thing? You just said gives great carpet. That
Yes.
is the
Great
most
carpet.
amazing thing I've ever heard.
Listen.
Don, bring us back to seriousness.
Okay, if we're talking about the Oscars, that's a separate conversation. But if we're talking about strictly SAG, I think it's to me for two reasons. I think if you're an actor, you've probably worked with her, you admire the fact that the substance is about an actress, and don't forget that. I think that's really important. So I think she has
Mm-hmm.
the actors vote on lock for those two reasons. If you're the actor side and you're not an actor, you've still, I mean, everyone grew up, everyone has a Demi Moore movie. If it's Ghost, if it's something else, Charlie's Angels, whatever.
G.I.
So I
Jane.
think she has G.I. Jane. So I think she has that sort of populist appeal as well. And both of them are really working for her in this for this particular voting body. I mean, I think Mikey is probably a good number two at this point, but I just think with SAG and what they represent and what they do again to the Aniston versus Coleman kind of thing, I think it's to me. It always has been, to be honest.
I know, and always been, and I think it's sort of like the Brendan Fraser story here, right? Like it's kind of like this comeback of like, you know, oh, we forgot about her for a really long time. No one really took her seriously. She was like kind of known for doing like, oh, striptease, like crap, like kind of like the crappy mainstream things. And then she comes back with this, and everyone is sort of like, oh my God, where have you been all my life? And I think it's been a crowd favorite. This movie has been a crowd favorite, and it's been the little engine that could. And I love seeing it, especially because I've said this on numerous of these recordings. It's like it's Mubi. Like who the hell knows who Mubi is? And then like they don't have any money, and yet it's dominating, and it's great to see it.
And to your credit, I think I've been seeing a lot of comparisons to the Brendan Fraser of it all. And even having that top of mind, I can see that pushing a lot of people to be like, yeah, we want that story.
Yeah.
I would just add two stats that both Adrian Brody and Demi Moore are the only ones nominated from their films here, whereas at the Oscars, they have a lot of padding with other stuff. I think that actually might help them more in some ways because it's like, oh, I want it on the Brutalist. Oh, Adrian Brody, there we go. I want it on the episodes. Oh, Demi Moore. Like, there was, I think, a concern at some point. I thought that like Margaret Qualley would get nominated and Demi Moore wouldn't. That was wrong, obviously. But the idea that unlike at BAFTA where Jamie Lee Curtis got nominated and Pamela Anderson didn't, like Demi Moore is the substance, and that's the way she can win here. I think the fact that Fernanda Torres is not nominated here and hasn't been nominated at most precursors makes for Oscar chaos because that is like a new element that we have to talk about. But if we did that here, we would never hang up. So we have to do that another time, and we will certainly revisit that. I think for our last SAG category, film ensemble, there is a feeling that if Honora wins this, it's done. We can turn off the Oscars before the last category, and like it's going to win. I don't think it's a lock here. I will note stats wise that Conclave, despite having theoretically the most like a wide cast of actors who've been working for decades, has only one acting nomination here, whereas every other film has something. I still think it's going to win.
Conclave?
Really? I think because this is SAG, I think it's going to Wicked. I think that movie has been through the ringer this season, and especially on the actor side, they're just looking for a place to actually like give it some love. And I think 100% it's going to Wicked.
This is a
That's so
really
interesting.
hard category. I mean, I was from the beginning. I'm like, Wicked had everything. I thought for sure when that movie came out, and it did hold momentum for a while. This one is really hard. I do agree. I think it's gonna be Wicked. I do also. Amelia Perez, I thought would have had it for a while, but I think Conclave could, if maybe, maybe.
Well,
I think
I mean, go ahead, Shadan. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I do think Conclave is a strong number two, and I think if we were only looking at actors, it would probably be enough to take it. But I mean, just so many people have seen Wicked. Wicked is the movie that people in my like regular non-movie life are still talking about. And I just think that can't be underestimated here. Jonathan Bailey getting in, I think, is a show of massive strength for that movie that can't be underestimated here. And we've seen Black Panther win here. We've seen Everything Everywhere All at Once. I mean, these sort of populist movies do very well at SAG, even if they're not necessarily a lock for picture. I think we're tying SAG and Oscar too closely together now, where we've seen in recent years there's been a split, and there's going to be a split here.
Yep. I mean, this is really, I mean, it's weird to me like the Gold Derby has Honora at number 2. I mean, I would put Honora at number 5 in this category because I would put it as Wicked, Conclave, because I do agree with Abe with this. is that like when you look like if you're really judging a movie based on its cast, right? I mean, that's why I can see him, like he's saying, like putting that at number one, because there's so many recognizable actors in that movie. The problem is that that movie has so many recognizable actors, and yet half of them don't do anything. That's the problem with it. I mean, remember when we were talking about Stanley Tucci being in the conversation and John Lithgow and like all this craziness in the very beginning of it? And then you kind of like watch that movie and you're like, well, they were in the movie for like 15 minutes. Um, but then I'm like thinking about Complete Unknown to what Abe was saying earlier about like how the actors, and this is to your point too, Shadan, about them being in a lot of different categories. You have Edward Norton, you have Monica, you have Timothy. So like to me, that's an ensemble there. But then you can say the same thing about Amelia Perez. But I
Well,
think go ahead.
I was going to say, I will say in terms of marketing, A Complete Unknown hasn't really come out as an ensemble. I think a big part, especially when we're talking about SAG and we're talking about judging these films as the cast of their characters, it's good to see them all together. Some of the first screenings of Wicked were with the entire cast. Anytime they sent people out, it was Cynthia and Ariana. There was like one target performance that was just Cynthia, but for the most part, they've had them all together. We see them as a unit and together. That's why I think Honora doesn't necessarily have a chance, because outside of Mikey, there aren't people that can name who else is in this off the top of their heads, except for like film people, you know. Conclave is also a good choice for this because, again, you have all these beloved characters, regardless of how long they were on screen, you know, they still came out together. The only two screenings I've seen of Conclave were with the entire cast. I haven't seen that at all for A Complete Unknown. And I feel that that's one of the situations where they probably did come out a little too late.
I would note about an. Sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it's the temperature too. I mean, it's like what mood, it depends what mood the voters are in. Wicked and Conclave are two completely different vibes.
But
So
they're escapists, you know, and especially around voting time,
yeah.
people
I
want to
will
be
also
like,
say to FYC campaigns, I've seen two different types of billboards for A Complete Unknown. One lists all the actors as, and it says who they're playing, so people can be like, "Oh, I know that famous musician," and the other ones just say like A Complete Triumph or A Complete something else with nothing else. Similar to how Honora is just like follow your heart. Like it doesn't actually tell you anything about the movie. It's just like, oh, remember you liked this movie. This movie was really great. My argument in favor of Honora being in second place and possibly even winning is that Parasite and Slumdog Millionaire both won this prize. And those are not films where most people can name actors in them, or at least before those films. And so I think that that is definitely a case where you could say, oh, I loved all those people in Honora. Can't tell you any of their names, but they were all so good. And so I think the fact that if it didn't get nominated, sure, that's one thing. But the fact that it got nominated, I think means that it is definitely, as a theoretical Best Picture frontrunner, still a distinct possibility here.
Abe, I agree with you, but those two casts, to Stacey's point, were seen as a group, and there was something so endearing about seeing them all together, where I don't think Honora has that. I could be very wrong, but I just think, to Stacey's point, they see it as a Mikey thing, not a look at this group of
right.
actors coming together.
Well, we always hope to be very wrong here at Awards Buzz. The idea is to have fun and talk about the people who aren't going to win anything. But I think we are in for hopefully an more interesting than we thought SAG Awards, right? There definitely are some categories with some spice to them. So not Dune Part 2, though, except for in Stunt Ensemble. But it has Timothée Chalamet, in case you wanted to know. There, he's in that movie. Just if you take nothing else away from this, remember that. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Abe Friedtanzer.
I'm Sari Cohen.
I'm Scott Menzel.
I'm Shadan Larki. You have to remember the give good carpet part. That's the best part of this.
I'm Stacey Yvonne, and I give good carpet.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you soon.